Oh my God. I'm leaving the UK. You have no idea how relieved I am. Okay. Let me contain myself. Okay. Today's video is about why I'm leaving the UK. And I want to leave things on a good note. So I'll also talk about what are the things that I'll miss about the UK. So this video is probably relevant for people who are already in the UK, either British citizens or you move here from other parts of the world. And you're wondering whether it's better for you to move outside of the UK. I joke with my friends, this is my Brexit. Get it? Wing wing. So the immigrants are moving out. Okay, controversial. I would still like to come back for holidays and stuff, so please don't ban me from the country. And this video, I hope, will also be relevant for people who are considering whether they would like to move to the UK. So I'll share my journey with you as to how I come to the conclusion that it's better off for me not to be based in London or UK in general. A little bit about my story and my history. I'm Vivian, and I've lived in 5 different countries. I was born in Malaysia. I lived in Singapore for the longest part of my life. I did my high school and university in Australia, and I worked in Shanghai for a year while travel extensively to Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, and Taiwan when I was based in Singapore and then the UK. So I live in 5 different countries, so I could compare life in UK versus all the rest of the countries that I've worked in. A bit about my story. Yes, okay, I was on a 100K plus per year job at some point, and that ended about 3 years ago. I know there is a content creator who talks about how you literally can't live in London even with a 100K salary. Whilst some of the points that she covered might be correct, I don't quite like the tone of it because it sounded a little bit like a humble brag and victim mentality all rolled into one. And I just think, if you are determined to save money in London, you could, even with a much lower salary, which I did because the 100K job was only towards the end of my time in London. And I came to London with a job that pays less than 100K. So anyway, I did have a 100K job and the contract ended. And I just thought, yeah, sure, I'll look for another job. The thing is, I was on a skilled workers visa at that time, which requires company to hire me before I could stay in the UK. And the first thing that went through my mind was, oh, okay, sure, I need a job so that I can stay in the UK. And the job market was horrible at that time. It's still horrible now. It took me, I kid you not, about 7 months to secure a job that pays a fraction of what I was getting paid and in a very unhealthy environment. But I had to take it because I needed a visa to stay in the UK. I'm very grateful for the company that hired me, but pretty much as soon as I got my indefinite leave to remain, I just resigned because it's not good for my mental health to stay in that job. So, and took me another 3, 4 months before I get my next corporate job. Actually, the content creator was my colleague because it was a big social media company, but I didn't know her when I was working in that social media company. But that job wasn't that ideal either. There was quite a lot of politics. And let's just say the person who hired me was not my manager. And my manager, when I eventually joined the company, saw me as a threat. So I knew that I was not going to stay there that long. So that job ended more than a year ago, and I have been looking for jobs ever since. But by that time, I was so drained. And meanwhile, I started doing content creation. And the thing is, I've been investing ever since I got my first salary more than 20 years ago. So I just continue to invest and I focus a little bit more on how to make my money grow money. It just got to a point where I realized while looking for jobs here in the UK, I realized actually I have enough money to retire to a cheaper Southeast Asian country and not have to work for the rest of my life. And that's when I thought, wait a minute, why am I in London when the weather can be miserable like 6 months out of a year? And the financial stress is pretty intense, especially when you're not working. And even when you're working, you have to like budget every single pence because things are so expensive here. And one time when I was back in Singapore, I must have looked really depressed because a friend of me, a really close friend of me, started asking me, "What's keeping you there in London?" Mind you, this is a guy who got his PhD in psychology from London, and his partner got an MBA from London Business School. So they lived in London before. They know the good and bad side of London. And when my friend started asking me that question, I struggled to answer him. The first thing that came to my mind was my flat in Shoreditch. Then I realized, but I can sell the flat. I don't have to be tied down by a flat. It's ridiculous. And so, and that was in Singapore when he asked me the question. I remember when I came back to London from that trip, as I was waiting for my plane in Changi Airport, I felt extremely sad. I move around so much in my life. I have not felt so sad moving back to my base in my life, not even when I was living in China. So it's not rational, but I'm one of those people who really pay attention to my feelings. And I just thought, okay, my feelings is trying to tell me something. So when I came back to London, I started exploring, do I want to live in London or do I want to move somewhere else? And I realized the vibe in London is off. And because I have time, so I started talking to a lot of my friends. A lot of my friends are not from the UK. They are people who move here from places like Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong. And I realized things have changed a lot in the past 10 years in London. Economy used to be much better. And London was certainly the center of financial world right after New York. I would say, yeah, London is probably still the center of financial world right after New York, but a lot of other places are catching up, namely Dubai, Singapore, even places like Paris, Frankfurt, Amsterdam. So it is a country in decline. And I start to see this decline almost everywhere. You can see how the NHS is being run. I'm very grateful for NHS. I think it's much better than the American healthcare system. But as a taxpayer, sometimes I look at how the resources are being managed. And as a Singaporean, I get very annoyed at how inefficiently the resources is being managed. And I'll give you a concrete example. I have a specialist referral in NHS, but because I decided to go to Malaysia and go to a private hospital, which is why I'm going back to Singapore and Malaysia now, I needed to cancel my NHS appointment with the specialist. So I called them up, and guess what? The hotline says they don't take calls on that day, and they advised me to go to the website to cancel my appointment. I'm like, okay, fine. I went to the website, and guess what? The website chatbot told me to call the number that I just called. So I was bounced around like a ping pong ball. And for somebody who lived in 5 different countries before, mind you, my 5 different countries are not all of them are like advanced countries like the UK. And I'm sad to say this, I don't consider UK an advanced country now, unfortunately. So like Malaysia is not considered an advanced country, especially when I was growing up in Malaysia in the 80s and 90s. I have not been bounced around like a ping pong ball. The only time in my life where I live in a country where I have been bounced around like a ping pong ball was China more than 10 years ago. And I'm very, very sure China has improved drastically since then. And that really annoyed me because not only that the resources is not well managed, you're wasting my time as a consumer, as a taxpayer. And that's just one example. You see this almost everywhere. How the police handle cases, how the TFL is being run. And it makes me angry and sad that this is what the taxpayer in the UK have to endure. I know some people or some content creator or some influencers will use what I just said to advance their political views. This is not about politics. This is not about Labour versus Tory versus Reform or versus any of one of those parties. I come from a country where the party politics is just not so prominent. And some other critics might call those countries undemocratic. To me, having lived in those countries, what I care about as a citizen is my security, my access to healthcare, education, public transport, food safety, clean water, clean air. That's what I care about. And I think this is the job of a government to provide that, to make sure that the citizens have those resources. And I'm very sad to say that I don't think UK government is doing that. They probably are trying their best, but the results aren't that great. So I guess you could say that's one reason why I decided to leave the UK. The other big reason is I have rental income from Singapore. It's coming to a point where they are starting to tax my rental income. And I'm not a high net worth individual yet. I'm not a millionaire yet. But the rental income from my Singapore is significant. So, I bought that property as my own home more than 10 years before I decided to move to London. So my question is like, why do I have to pay income tax on my rental income in Singapore? To me, that's against my principle. If I have a UK property, which I did, I'm more than happy to pay rental income on my UK property. No problem. If I earn salary in the UK, of course I'm more than happy to pay rental income in the UK. But this is my rental income from Singapore. Why are you taxing it? So, and then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, you know what? I don't have to be a UK tax resident. I have my indefinite leave to remain already. I can just come back for a holiday when the weather is good, right? And honestly, even without indefinite leave to remain, with my Singaporean passport, I can still come back 6 months out of a year on a tourist visa. So, and so it was, in that sense, quite an easy decision to just leave the UK. But I say this with sadness as well, because there are things that I enjoy about living in the UK. And one of the things that I enjoy are the museums. I absolutely love the culture and the history of London. And I also like the weather during spring. I'm not so much of a summer person. I actually think Australian summer and Australian spring is so much better than London spring, London summer. Um, and I would miss all the friends that I've met. Like the people in London are absolutely interesting and amazing in a very good way. I have some of the most mind blowing, intellectually stimulating conversations with the friends that I've met in London. And I really, really cherish that and I'll miss them dearly. I want to leave things on a good note. And I also want to make this video useful for people who are living in the UK, be it British citizens or somebody who moved here from other countries, or people who are considering moving to the UK. And I would say just be mindful that I'm not positive on how much UK will grow in the next few years. It might surprise me, who knows? But I'm just not positive on the growth. And sure, you can say that not everything is about economic growth, but economic growth means you will have more tax revenue, which means you can provide better infrastructure and services for people who live there. You can provide better parks, better public transport, healthcare, education, you name it. So you need growth, unfortunately. I mean, we live in a capitalistic world. So I'm not positive about the growth in the UK in the next few years. So I would encourage people who are able to explore the world, and you don't have to leave the UK permanently, right? So if you can explore other parts of the world, go ahead and do it. It will open up your horizon. For people who are thinking of moving to the UK, especially if you're moving here from the richer countries like Australia, America, Canada, richer part of Europe, Singapore, even Malaysia or Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, maybe just come here for a holiday first if you've never been to the UK, right? Come here for a holiday first. I know the experience as a tourist and living here permanently is quite different, but come here as a holiday so you can see it for yourself. And when you do move here, plan this like a 2 to 3 year thing and see whether you'll like it. Don't think that you will be coming here permanently. And I thought I'm going to be here forever when I moved here 7 years ago. And it turns out 7 years later, I'm like, I have enough and bye. If you could get your company to send you here, even better, because that way it takes away the pressure of having to look for a job, which can be very stressful in the UK. Because the first thing when you move to London is you need to look for a place to stay. If you don't have a job, then a lot of landlords are not that interested in renting their space to you. So yeah, if you can get your company to send you here, even better. If you can't, well, then just be mentally prepared that you might have to tough it out in the first 2 to 3 months at least. And also come here with an open mind. I was born in a former British colony. Malaysia and Singapore are both former British colony. And I guess for people who are from Malaysia and Singapore, we have very high regards of the UK because we literally inherited our rule of law from the UK. We inherited a lot of the infrastructure that the British built when they occupied Malaysia and Singapore. So I had very high regards of London and the UK before I moved here. But unfortunately, I have to say I am disappointed. So, but it has been a nice journey, and I like to leave things on a good note. I learned so much about the British history and how it influences the rest of the world. And I definitely grown as a person. And UK has definitely taught me how to face life with more grace and patience, which were not my strong suit before I moved here. So on that note, I gotta catch my flight soon. And well, if you find this video useful, please click a like and a subscribe. And I will share more of my life with you in the next country that I'm moving to. Bye.